Hey there, Skeleton Key here. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. This is sort of a special event. So don't normally do a lot of sprints and, reading and productivity sprints on my channel. It's usually for something special. And I'm hoping to be joined by some other members of a local book club, or at least it started as a local book club, the LHR Society. And we're going to be remembering Susan Wolber, who was a member of the book club, and she died in November of last year. And so I'm hoping to be joined by some of the other members of the book club. And we're a bunch of introverts, I think. So I'm not sure if any of them will take me up on the guest link. So we'll just see. But hopefully, I know Caitlin is hoping to be here tonight. And if you've seen some of my live shows, you may have seen Caitlin on my channel before. And so hopefully we'll get a good discussion going there. And it's like, I'm over on StreamYard, so it's a little hard for me to tell a lot of what's going on. I've found that the counter on StreamYard is usually not quite in sync with the actual count over on YouTube. So, and I'm not quite sure how that works. And I'm a little out of sorts because I have not done a live in quite some time because I've been having a lot of stuff going on the last half of 2024. And so this is my first time back doing a live in quite some time. And they've added a bunch of stuff and moved a bunch of stuff on StreamYard. And most of it doesn't apply to me because I have the free account. So they're trying to get me to upgrade, I imagine. Let's see. While I'm waiting for other people to show up, I'll just go ahead and do my book report for week 1 of 2025, because I'm off to such a great start. I finished one book in the first week. Now, I did count only through Sunday, what was it, Wednesday? Was Wednesday the 1st? Or Thursday? Anyway, I guess it was like 5 days. Okay, now, I'd have to look at a calendar because I guess I'm tired. Anyway, it's been a long day. But I use a Monday start calendar and so do you know how hard it is to find a Monday start calendar? Anyway, I'll just well, I can show you that later. It's but so it's like a 5-day period through Sunday, and I like counting weeks Monday through Sunday. And so the first week of 2025 is not a full week, but I finished one book. And okay, let's see. Okay, looks like sharing my screen is still in the same place. Yay. Actually did that fairly quickly. So yeah, this is just my week 1 book report. I finished The Christmas Book Hunt. I actually started it, sometime around Christmas. And I'm a sucker for a treasure hunt. I feel like this wasn't quite as treasure hunting as I would have liked, but I gave it like 3.5 stars and rounded up to 4. And yeah, so that's that. And it was cute. It was sweet. It was it. I don't know. There were some character interactions that I thought were really good. Um, but that's all I've got for week 1. So now we've got here. Oh, hi. So hello, Christina. I am online. Let's see. Am I able to see other people or just you? In other words, is this like chat? Okay. So this is. So the way this works is you're in chat, and then I'm hoping to have a few other people on screen, or at least maybe Caitlin on screen. So the book club members do have access to be on screen, and so I'm hoping that they will take me up on that. But like I was explaining earlier, we're a bunch of introverts, so they may lurk in the chat, the text chat with you. So, but it's good to see you here, Brad. Thank you so much. And so my little counter is showing several people here now. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to talking about Sue. So Susan Wolber, and let's see. So Susan Wolber was a book club friend. She and I kind of knew her a little bit before we were in book club together. And yes, you're very welcome. And anyway, yeah, that's going to be way too small. So I'll just go through that in a little bit. But just a very lovely person, great book club friend. And I just saw this a while back. They do have, she was killed in a plane crash on November 23rd. And she and let's see. Hi, Caitlin is here.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry for the weird camera angle.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. I'm so glad to have you here. And we do have a few people in the chat as well. So, yeah, I was just going to start talking a little bit about Sue and how much we miss her in book club. And I'm not sure if any of the other members will join on screen or not. I think it'll probably be just you and me on screen. But and I don't know if you'd seen the update that I've got on screen, and this came out in December, middle of December, but that it was they haven't stated an official cause of the crash, but they do think it was the downdraft that I forget what they called it. But I thought this was really funny because, I mean, not funny is not the right word, but you know what I mean. Because, I mean, when you first hear of a crash like this, if you're morbid like me, your brain kind of goes to, oh my gosh, what were they thinking? What were they feeling? How awful was it? And this bit here. Sedergren, the sole survivor, told investigators that after completing the mission, which consisted of flying large circles over mountain roads and a valley, Wolber flew the Cessna to the south of the mission area, and within seconds he heard Wolber say, "Oh, expletive." And I was like, yeah, I heard that very clearly, and I know exactly what the expletive was. And yeah, oh God. Yeah, I'm gonna start crying. But anyway, and I mean, I didn't really know a whole lot about, yeah. Snodgrass and others said there was a severe warning for turbulence in the area at the time issued by NOAA. Yeah, there was that, and other people were speculating about a certain kind of downdraft that is pretty common in the mountains, where wind comes off of a mountain and just goes whoom, like that. And that basically, if you get caught in that, there's not much you can do.
It's scary to think that, like, I, definitely not my wheelhouse with, flying, but, like, it's scary and weird to think there's certain kinds of just freak weather conditions, like, microbursts or like downdrafts and things like that, that like even a super, super skilled pilot, and I mean, like, Sue was like, I mean, it really dawned on me, like, going to her memorial service, like having all the pilots there. I mean, like, she was about as senior and experienced of a pilot as can be. I mean, she trained other pilots, she critiqued other people's like landings and everything. Like, to think that there are weather conditions like that, that just even the best pilots, right? Like can,
Yeah.
There's just not a lot you can do when you're being forced into solid objects or solid walls like mountains.
Yeah, and I mean, Sue is legendary apparently. And yeah, and that huge space just filled with people. And I didn't really know. I knew she was a pilot for the Civil Air Patrol, and when I saw the reports coming in, that it was the crash was a Civil Air Patrol plane, I was like, I know people in Civil Air Patrol. Hello, Jones.
Oh yeah, Jones wants to say hello to everybody. Wants to show off his orangeness.
It's always the orange cats.
Yep.
But yeah, and it's just really, really sad. But I was actually going through, and so this is too small to read, so I'm just gonna have to read it out. I was wanting to go through some of her pics, and and just because I know we have like lots of memories, and looks like she joined the group near the end of 2015. So this is, we've got 9 years of history here, and I knew her to some extent before book club. I guess because her husband Bob and my husband Brian knew each other, and so that's kind of how we got connected with Sue, and and I guess Sue and Marta knew each other, and yeah, so anyway, so yeah, anyone who's here, whether you're part of the book club or not, and if you're not part of the book club, you're perfectly welcome. Yeah, it's like any kind of comforting presence is lovely to have here, and feel free to pipe up about any of the books that you recognize, and if you have any special memories of these books, and also if you just knew Sue, and want to share any memories of Sue, that would be absolutely lovely.
I know
Uh-huh.
I have two favorites like
Yeah.
that recommended. One, well, I mean, not, things are more than just funny or serious. I have one funny one and one very serious one that I remember.
Uh-huh.
Maybe start with the funny one. The Happy Hooker. That's one of the ones I'm recommending.
I still have not finished that one. I have it. I still have it. And this year I am, I've got my wall of shame. You've seen my wall of shame. Uh, and of books I have not finished. And that is one of them. It is on the wall of shame. And I am making a concerted effort in 2025 to finish books on the wall of shame. Because right now it's double stacked. And that's not really a good thing. So
that one, that was the memoir of a sex worker. And I think a Dutch, is that what it was? Is that her nationality?
Let's see.
Hollander?
Xaviera Hollander. Yeah, so if you grew up in the 1970s, it may have been from a gleefully lusty tour guide named Xaviera Hollander. In the late 1960s, the era of sexual chaos when Playboy clubs and love-ins were competing for national attention, a beautiful, intelligent young Dutch secretary named Xaviera de Vries moved to New York, grew swiftly tired of her desk job, and soon became the most visible and glamorous madam the city had ever seen.
Hey, there's more interesting stuff to do on a desk,
Yeah.
I remember being very surprised that Sue had recommended this one, right? Because I remember this was kind of new when she was in a book club, and I didn't know, I knew she knew your husband. I didn't know her that well. I was still just kind of getting to know Sue for who she was. And I think my first impression of her was engineer, kind of straight-laced, and then when she recommended this book, I remember just being kind of huh, okay, there's this whole other, a whole other kind of fun side to you that you picked this book. And I'm really trying to rack my brain, because I do remember, I remember us meeting at my house, and I remember, I think we were asking her, why'd you pick this, Sue? What's, what was the attract, and I'm trying to remember what her response was to that.
It has to do with the secrecy part of LHRS.
That's right. So I think she was literally okay, I want, okay. And I can't reveal, but
yeah,
I kind of do remember that about kind of realizing that was one of my first, she was a very kind of literal person, but I love that she picked this, right? I feel like this was that was the meeting where I remember just kind of being, I remember feeling like there was more to her. When you're first meeting people, you kind of get layers. And I felt like that was the first time I was seeing beneath a surface layer.
Yeah. And here's the thing that is a mountain wave. There's this thing called mountain wave, which is basically when the winds blow over Long's Peak or whatever, they drop like a current of water and can create very severe rotors. And that's from Bill Snodgrass. Yeah, I remember him saying that, and I couldn't remember what it was called, but yeah, it's and people just, they'd say, the mountains are just weird. Wind does strange things in the mountains, and it's just, really bizarre to think that there's stuff that just, that's it, game over. Anyway, but yeah, the Happy Hooker. So yeah, I'll probably be trying to read that one this year.
Do it for Sue.
Yeah, gotta do it for Sue. And
although I will say that I don't, knowing Sue, I don't think she would have any kind of stake in you reading the book if you weren't into it.
I know.
It's one of the things they brought up at her memorial service, and it is a quote I remember associated with her. And it is I think if there's any quote I'm going to remember her by, it's if we're not having fun, what are we doing here?
Right.
And I think that would be her attitude. If this book isn't for you, if you're not into it, if it's just not your cup of tea,
Yeah.
no worries. Like she wasn't a person with a big ego at all. Like I
Oh,
felt
I
like she was the
know. Yeah.
opposite of that. Like she just like, you know, she was who she was, and I don't think I never once saw her take anything personally.
Yeah. Yeah, she was just really amazing like that. I mean, always gracious and warm and I mean, you know, and apparently even when she was critiquing somebody, she could always say things in a way that it's, you know, it was never like, oh wow, you're a horrible pilot or anything like that. It's um yeah, and yeah, she had a real gift for that kind of thing, and uh yeah, so I don't know. Um let's see, there was one that I think it's Promises, Promises. Let's see. Yeah, that one. So this, you know, and I can't remember. Was she related to L.J. Baker or a friend was related? I can't remember the exact relationship, but she knew the author, L.J. Baker.
That's
And
bringing something back.
yeah. And anyway, so the full title, Promises, Promises, a romp with plenty of dykes, a unicorn, an ogre, an oracle, a quest, a princess, and true love with a happily ever after. and um and it's just this absolutely hilarious. And see, okay, the first time I started reading it, I kind of bounced off of it. I was like, this is just kind of silly. And then I joined a D&D party and it was an all female or genderqueer party. And then about a month later, I picked this up again and was reading it. And I'm like, this is the funniest damn thing I've ever read because it was just all sorts of weird, silly stuff with unicorns and whatnot. An ogre, an oracle, quest, princess. Yeah. So, yeah.
I don't remember what was going on back when we were reading this one. I remember this is one of the ones I didn't read. And I think I missed the meeting too, but
Oh,
now
yeah.
that you say that, that is making me kind of interested to possibly go back and read that.
Yeah, and it's just it's a very specific kind of humor. And you do have to be in a very specific mood to read it and really appreciate it. But it's hilarious. And a dragon, let's see, Sandy has a year and a day to travel to far-flung places, encountering such dangerous creatures as a dragon who writes awful poetry, slovenly elves, and boarding house landladies to collect the weird and magical items needed to turn her prophecies into promises and so evade the executioner. So, yeah, so it's all about prophecies. But yeah. Fun times. Okay.
I don't know if there's anything in the chat, but I know my little one is watching an episode of Spidey Man, and at some point she will get bored of that and want mommy back.
Okay.
So if I'm not being too much of a hog, would it be okay if I went on, talked about my favorite book?
Oh no, go ahead. Go
I guess
ahead.
I get dragged away. My all-time favorite book that Sue ever recommended, and it was one of those things that like changed my life, changed my perspective on things, and made me really question things like guilt and morality and everything, was a book from 2018. I just saw it. I think it was that, which was The Reader by Bernhard Schlink.
Schlink.
There's a film of it too, and I hesitate to give away. It sucks because I really want to talk about the twist in it, but I don't want to spoil it because I feel like it is a lot of the suspense of the book as you kind of understand what's happening. But it's it's the story of a teenage German boy that has a very, abusive, problematic, romantic and sexual relationship with an older woman in the town that he's in. And, as he grows up and gets older, he comes to learn a lot of things about this person that he was with. They talk about the idea of eroticism. I think that the main character kind of sees that as through the lens of that when he's recounting this as being a teenager who, was, basically groomed and abused by somebody. But the story, I don't know that I'm making it appealing since it's about something really, kind of icky, but it's, oh my gosh, it's just such a good book when you figure out a lot of what was going on with this person. And kind of understanding how much culpability, like there. Okay, I'm being, maybe you can kind of help me frame this a little better. I feel like I'm rambling. I wasn't planning, but
yeah, I don't know. This was not a favorite of mine. I did read it. But yeah, I don't know. It's yeah, there was just a lot to it, but I think it's just the author's writing style, and maybe and I don't know how much of that is the translator's writing style and how much of it is the original text, because my German is crap. So but I have yet to find a German author that I click with. So I don't know. So I don't know how to describe it.
it's similar to a book I know you and I both read, and I don't know if enjoyed is the right word, but a book you and I kind of sunk our teeth into that you recommended called My Dark Vanessa.
Oh, yeah.
This book reminds me a lot of it. It's like a story of a teenager that again, like looks on a relationship in the beginning and thinks it's this wonderful romantic thing, even though like as the reader, as you're seeing what's going on, you're seeing, hopefully seeing like a lot of red flags, and it's like, oh my gosh, no. And it's like the story is him coming to understand, what was going on, but that's not what the whole story is about.
Right.
You find out that, the woman he has this relationship with, has a very, very dark past, connected to World War II and the Holocaust. And, it's just, there's a very rich story, and there's a very big twist of something that he didn't realize was happening with this person while he was having this, situation with her.
Yeah. Well, here in the blurb, it says, as he watches her refuse to defend her innocence, Michael gradually realizes that Hannah may be guarding a secret she considers more shameful than murder.
Yes.
So I think maybe that really, I think that phrases it pretty well. But yeah, I can see the parallels sort of to My Dark Vanessa, which yeah, I do recommend that, but oh boy, content warnings, yeah. It's you need to go in knowing what you're getting into with that one, because it goes very, very dark, and don't be looking for a happy ending with that one.
What I remember, and I can't give away too much, this is vague, but Sue's recommendation for this once again had to do with the title of our book group that we're in. But a lot of, I remember the discussion that Sue had was, we talked a lot about skills we take for granted. Like, right? Like if you are a person who has had the benefit of a formal education, right? Like so much of our skill, like there's so much we take for granted, like our ability to think critically, our ability to understand basic science, our, you know, ability to read and write, our social abilities, you know, our ability to function in groups, like so many things we spend years of our life learning. It could be so extremely easy to take for granted. And knowledge, like how do we construct knowledge? How do we understand the world around us? You know, how do we understand the world outside of ourselves, and how do we understand ourselves too?
Yeah. And just a really odd kind of connection to that is, yeah, let me go over here to look it up. And this is just a kid's picture book, but I was reading this because I was for a reading challenge. This ticked some boxes, so I was like, okay, I'll read this, and maybe it was the narrator's voice. I don't know, because this was a read along thing. It's like, look at the pictures, and it narrates it along with it. But so this kid is looking for carrots in this greenhouse, and I mean, this says way more about me than it does about the book. I went ahead and gave it 5 stars, even though I'm a horrible person. And every time, so he goes to the greenhouse and he's looking for carrots, and it's really, I mean, beautifully constructed to introduce the concepts of categorization and analysis and observation. But it's like every time he picks up a plant or points to a plant, is that a carrot? Because he's looking for carrots. And I'm just like, God, no, that's not a carrot. What makes me? Because I don't know, I'm an old bitch, I guess. I'm just like, it's a good thing I do not have children. Because I like, but this book is very much about how we construct knowledge, how we obtain knowledge, and as humans, how our brains process it and put it into little boxes. And I thought that was really fascinating, but at the same time, I'm like, no, that is not a carrot. But that's more about me than anything else. Let's see. I'm going back to this. Okay, let's see. There's the reader, and
Oh, I just remembered one of them, The Beak of the Finch.
Oh yes, let's see. There it is.
Yeah. I think I remember us really enjoying and like sending some about that. And I feel like that book now, every time I read anything about the Galapagos Islands or Darwinism and natural selection, I do think back to that book, because I remember there being like something that I feel like, I guess now that I think about it, it's a little more obvious, but I didn't really understand it. Is one of the things is I think, partly, you know, speaking of the way that we categorize knowledge and information, I feel like so much of like early education and just the way kids' brains are is, you know, we want to categorize things like there's this species and this species and this species. And what I remember about this book that kind of changed my framework of everything is the idea that a lot of these finches, they sort of diverge and then converge as species, right? You'll have like a kind of finch where it'll become 2 different species, and then eventually, like, depending on how things bottleneck, they'll end up, you know, being able to cross, you know, breed again and be able to do that. So like this idea of evolution, of about everything just diverging and going totally different paths, isn't always the case.
Yeah. And Brad points out, how does one learn unless you ask questions? Exactly, which is why I'm glad I didn't go, because I was in like Future Teachers of America when I was in high school, because I come from a family of teachers, and yeah, it's a good thing for everybody involved that I did not go into teaching. Because just like, I would get so frustrated so quickly. But yeah, you're exactly right. Thanks, Brian.
Carrot. Is that a carrot? Brian says. Do you remember this one? Did you enjoy The Beak of the Finch?
Okay, so with a lot of nonfiction, and I don't know why exactly this is, I don't know how much of it I read, because with nonfiction, I'll just skip through and go, oh, this looks like an interesting chapter, and I'll read that. And then I'll kind of, ooh, here's a picture, and I'll read the picture, the caption and a few pages, and I just bounce around all over the place. I did like it. However much I read of it, I did really like it. And it just, the whole, the story around it, Jonathan Weiner's story. Let's see. Let's see. Two scientists, Peter and Rosemary Grant, have spent 20 years proving that Darwin did not know the strength of his own theory. Natural selection is neither rare nor slow. It is taking place by the hour, and we can watch. And yeah, there's just so much stuff that was new to me in there. Oh, Natalia. Ed says is not a carrot, right? So happy you could be here, Natalia.
All right, here's the thing about Sue I want to say from this book that I remember is that as some people know who knew Sue, she was married to Bob, and I never quite get other people, like everybody else's relationship is a mystery to me, right? But like Bob and Sue were kind of funny. They were a funny pair because they looked alike, right? Like they both had kind of like long straight hair, high-waisted pants, similar kind of way of talking. Like it was very funny. They were a very kind of funny, quirky, cute couple that way. And I remember kind of wondering, I don't know if I asked this or not, but like the people in this book, Peter and Rosemary, the two people, if you could go back to that blurb, that might help out, but I can't remember their
where'd it go?
From that, I think it was, I want to say 2020, maybe, no, something like that. Yep. Okay. Sorry, what was the name of the two scientists, the couple?
Here we go.
Hang
Peter
on.
and Rosemary Grant.
Okay. So one of the things, I mean, it's a nonfiction book, but I think kind of just one of those, like, I think sometimes they're just like sort of couples that were fated to be together. I felt that way about Bob and Sue because they look so much alike, but I wondered if Sue resonated with the couple, in this book, the Peter and Rosemary Grant. Because like, here's this couple that like, not a lot of people would be like, you know what I want to do? I want to spend 20 years of my life just doing the laborious biology collection of data on finches, which are not like big tropical exciting birds. They're kind of like, all things considered kind of bland, but like this was a couple, like this was their passion. Like imagine being somebody that dedicated to birds and you meet another person that's dedicated to the same bird and you spend like 20 years of your life in this tiny little closed ecosystem and that's your idea of paradise. Like that, there's something very beautiful about that. I'm kind of sad thinking about that just because, I mean, like, by all accounts, it seemed like Bob and Sue were very happy together and they were very, very well matched for each other. And, I feel like that kind of synergy of people is rare, right? Like to get that. So, anyway, just making me think a little bit.
Yeah. And yeah, I think, I can definitely see that. Let's see. And did you get to read Fuzz by Mary Roach?
No, I know of Mary Roach, but I think looking at 2024, this was kind of 2024, 2020. This is kind of the preschool toddler year where it was harder for me, to make meetings because I've got a small, very active kid that wants to play with me. I'm actually kind of amazed that she's still watching Spider-Man because I'm probably gonna have to sign off any minute, but this is nice. I'm getting a little bit of time here.
Yeah, yeah. And let's see. And oh, and I should take this opportunity to point out that yeah, lessons in chemistry. This was Sue's pick for our January meeting. So yeah, and she picked it right before the crash. And yeah, so anyway, I have started reading this for the book club. I got stuck on, there's pretty early on, there's a scene that is really difficult to get through. So I'm still stuck there. So that's part of why I decided, oh, let's do some reading sprints tonight. And hopefully I can get past that and get into the meat of the story. But yeah, this was right. So what, I guess a couple weeks beforehand, Sue had picked this as our January discussion book. So, but yeah, Fuzz, it was, I was a little leery of reading this, and why do I have it marked want to read? I apparently never updated this. But anyway, I had read, well, I read one other book by Mary Roach, and I started another book by Mary Roach, and I had come to the conclusion that I just did not like her sense of humor. Yeah. But I went ahead and read this one, and yeah, it was pretty interesting, and yeah, and the things that I didn't like about Roach's sense of humor really were not at the fore here. So I was able to to get through it okay. But yeah, there was a lot of interesting stuff, and yeah, just about animal behavior, um, and then I don't know, is human behavior much better? Especially when you think about all the people going into Yellowstone and harassing the buffalo. It's like,
Yeah.
no, do not pet the fluffy cows. Don't.
I love all the alt national park just like just the kind of Gen Z, like, are you kidding? You know, kind of humor.
Yeah.
Like, why are we still discussing this? Like, you know, the more I think about some of the books we have, and I don't think about this with people, you don't think about this with people, I guess, until you're in a introspective kind of place with something like this. But I feel like there's a theme kind of linking a lot of Sue's books that we've talked about. I mean, looking back, Sue was a courageous person in so many ways, right? I mean, like somebody willing to, you know, do all this. Like, I mean, she was much more physical, I feel like, than a lot of us in book club, right? I mean, she was, you know, while we were like, you know, hanging out, getting lattes and stuff like that, she was out hiking and biking and, you know, rafting and flying planes and doing all this. But it was, you know, I would say it was more than just a physical courage. It was like, I feel like Sue had this curiosity about the world and an ability to, like, I mean, a lot of the books, you know, the stuff, I mean, kind of looking at things like death and um nature and, you know, stuff like that. A lot of the stuff she picked, it was sort of, there was a curiosity and a willingness to fearlessly explore scientific and intellectual topics.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I just pulled up Horse, which was a fairly recent one of her picks. And yeah, and this was the first Geraldine Brooks book I'd ever read. And I've started on Year of Wonders. And yeah, it's like every once in a while it has to go back to the library. But anyway, but yeah, this one I think embodies that, because it was one thing I'm learning about Geraldine Brooks is her writing. You can't really just explain it in a sentence or two. And it's like, here, a discarded painting in a junk pile, a skeleton in an attic, and the greatest racehorse in American history. That's what this book is about. But it's a sweeping story of spirit, obsession, and injustice across American history. Yeah, so you've got an enslaved groom in 1850, and then there's a gallery owner in 1954 in New York City, and then a Smithsonian scientist from Australia at in DC in 2019, and then she meets up with Theo, who is a Nigerian American art historian, and then everything revolves around this lost history, basically, of this enslaved groom named Jarrett, who cares for this horse, and turns out to be a very special horse, and a lot of it is based in fact, and I forget it. I believe there were authors, and I like when historical fiction writers actually state in a note or something that this is fact, and this is where I just went off on my own, and so there was a lot, and I was kind of surprised at how much was actually based in fact, but yeah, it talks about racehorse, horse racing, and there's so much history there and injustice, and but yeah, I do recommend that book. It's really good.
I think I am gonna sign off right now. But Stina, thank you very much for putting this together and doing this. I don't know who all else is on, just in the chat or whatever, but
yeah, I've only seen Natalia, but I don't know. And of course Brian and Brad, but from the book club, I think it's just the three of us. But unless somebody else wants to say hi, Blair or somebody, I don't know.
Well, if there's any offers, but yeah, this was thanks. It's you always wish whenever something like this happens, you got more time with a person. It's sort of like that, like, oh my God, this is it. I'm trying to reframe that in a lot of ways, just to kind of, because death is a part of life. But I guess I'm trying to just look at this person, with a whole history and all these layers to her and everything that was part of this. And I guess just doing this, I feel a certain amount of gratitude, right? That we got the time that we did with her. Wish it could have been more, but what we had was what we had. And I feel like we had a very special and interesting person who was with us for a brief sliver of time.
Oh, Natalia. See, it's so good to see both of you. This is so nice. It really brings Sue back. Yes. Yeah. I was really glad that at least some of us could get together this evening. And I mean, we're a small group, and I think that's maybe why I felt a little overwhelmed at the memorial service, because so many people were there and so many people were in uniform, and it was like, I'm not part of that side of her life. And so it was nice to have our little knot of people there. But still, I'm so glad that that we were able to get together and just have our little book memorial.
Lots of love to you too, Natalia.
Yes. Thank you, Natalia. I'm so glad you could be here. And of course, you're welcome to stay for the, you can be off camera or whatever if you want, and stay for the sprints, the productivity sprints, or reading sprints or whatever.
I think I'm overdue for some playing supervillains with Josie. You want to play where all of her monster trucks are different. They're different villains from the Spideyverse universe. Like they have like a little kids TV show called Spidey Man, where it's like they've got like a little kid version of Green Goblin and Rhino and all of them, and we have like different monster trucks for all of them and for the good guys. So it's a whole thing. It's really elaborate, but so I'm gonna be in that world in just a minute.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Caitlin, Natalia, and I don't know if Brian and Brad are going to stick around or if there are other people lurking, but you're all welcome to stay for the sprints and get some reading done. You don't have to read Lessons in Chemistry. That's just what I'm reading. Yeah. So
All right.
thank you.
Farewell, friends.
Okay, so I've got Pomodoro Kitty up. Let's see, it's got 25 minutes on the clock. Does that sound good to everybody? Or would you like a longer sprint? Because we could do longer. I think we'll just start with 25 and see how that goes. And put in the chat what it is. Oh, hang on, I can do this. And yeah, you can put in the chat what you're reading or working on. And let's see, Brian, are you still awake? And there we go. What would you like to? But I am going to be reading Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. And that is the 25-minute mark. I did get past that scene, and I'm now on page 38. So I feel like I can, and once I've gotten over that bump, I can make pretty good progress. So let's see. So Brad got bored. Apparently reading sprints are not his thing. And I can't tell if there's anybody left. If so, pop into the chat and tell me how it went and what you were reading or working on. But since this is sort of an unusual type of live stream, with not the usual crowd of booktube people, so I figure there's probably not anyone left. I think everyone followed Brad out the door. And I think Brian apparently fell asleep, is my guess. So, but I'm glad that that we were able to have this evening, and yeah, if you are watching this on the replay, especially if you've got any memories of Sue or have comments on any of the books that we've talked about, or lessons in chemistry, if you have any thoughts or feelings on that. One interesting thing is that I have been told by several people that I would hate this book, and I'm not sure why, and they wouldn't tell me why, so I guess it's something spoilery, the reason. But if you can think of why I might end up hating this book, maybe there's a twist, something that you think I'm gonna really not like, let me know. You can just hop into the comments on the replay and let me know about that. But otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and sign off for the evening. And I do feel better now that I've gotten past that one scene and feel like I can continue at a reasonable pace. I don't feel quite so stuck anymore. And I hope, especially if you're new to the channel, that like and subscribe, and if you subscribe, and especially if you hit the bell, then you'll always be notified whenever I have a new video up, or a live stream scheduled. And it's going to be kind of random for a while here. I am going to really try to do at least one a week and get back to doing the weekly book report. And the pace is picking up, so hopefully I'll be able to keep up with that. It's just I have been really struggling with a lot of physical issues, and it's really hard doing the whole being vertical thing for hours on end. So this is we're just almost to an hour and a half right now, and so I should probably go get some rest. but I do really want to get back into at least a weekly touch base and see what's going on in the book world. And yeah, I mean, I a lot of times, I'm there are a lot of days that I can only, listen to audiobooks, and even like an ebook is kind of difficult, but so I listen to lots of books, and I miss talking about them with people. I am in book clubs, so that helps, but even especially like the in-person book clubs, it's like I'll read the book and then my body says, no, you're not going anywhere today. So, yay. So I don't get to talk about it. So I do want to really get back to that, and I hope to see the rest of you around. And yeah, I'll probably be doing live streams for the most part, because editing takes too much physical effort. So this is nice that I can just start a live stream, and even if nobody shows up, at least I get to talk. But it's better if people show up, because then I can ask questions and they can ask me questions and we can have an actual discussion. So this has been great, and a special thank you to Caitlin and for being on screen with me. And also thank you all for being here. And I mean, this was kind of a difficult discussion at times. Oh, Blair, hi.
Just chopping in. I'm sorry, I'm so late.
Oh no, this is great.
Okay.
Yeah, so glad to see you.
Thank you.
But yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so did you get to watch any of it earlier, or?
I have not.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so Caitlin was on earlier.
Cool.
And let's see, I should take the sprinting banner down. But yeah, so we talked about some of the books, and were there I don't know any, and yeah, we talked a lot about just how much we miss Sue.
Yeah.
And have you read Lessons in Chemistry, or started it?
I didn't get a chance to read it, but I read a lot about the synopsis and comparison to the series. Yeah.
Yeah, I got stuck on, there's an early scene that's really difficult. And so I got kind of stuck on that. And so during the sprint just a little bit ago, I was able to get over the hump, and so now I'm on page 38. So
okay. Cool.
So yeah. So hopefully I'll get that finished within the next week or so. But
awesome.
Yeah, it's a physical book, so and that's another issue with me right now is physical books. It's like, oh gosh, now my shoulder is out of whack.
Yeah.
Fun part of getting old, I guess.
Yeah. Here
so how are you doing?
Pretty good. Just really busy. Started a new job and just learning all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And just trying to, juggle day-to-day stuff and all that jazz.
Yeah.
My doctor left me as well, so I get trying to research finding all that. So.
Yeah. So yeah, we had a really good time just kind of talking about Sue and how special she was to us, and also going over some of the books that we remember Sue picking, and just which ones. Let's see, I know The Reader was one of Caitlin's favorites.
Cool.
And I can't remember if you were here for that one.
I don't think so, no.
Yeah.
But that was a good one too, yeah.
And let's see. And I really like the Promises one, and that's the sort of D&D adventure one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it's and I wish I could remember what her relationship was to the author. Whether I think she was related by marriage or something. I'm not sure.
Wow.
And the author, I think the author lived in New Zealand, I'm wanting to
Wow.
say. But I think L.J. Baker. And anyway, it was a fun, yeah. And I remember bouncing off of that one at first, and it was, it was really a very specific type of humor.
Okay.
And then I joined a D&D group that was all women and genderqueer.
Oh, cool.
And then I went back and read that book, and it was like, oh, this is hilarious.
Nice.
So,
what was that called?
That was Promises. Let me share my screen and get that up again. Yeah, I had the kitty up. And then
wow. There we go.
Yeah, and this is probably too small for anyone else to read the screen, but got over here. There it is. Promises by L.J. Baker.
Oh.
And the full title, hang on. Promises, a romp with plenty of dykes, a unicorn, an ogre, an oracle, a quest, a princess, and true love with a happily ever after.
Those are awesome.
Yeah, so that one's pretty funny. Oh, there was another one that I just saw that was really interesting. And let's see, we talked a little bit about Horse, which Caitlin hadn't read yet. No, there's the Blue Zones. That was interesting, but I just found myself very skeptical. Did you read the Blue Zones?
I don't think I did, Lessons for Learning. I have not. Oddly enough, Sue's December 2020 pick I have read, and that is...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The Beak of the Finch. Yeah, we talked about that one. And just... Yeah, I think, and that one, of course, December 2020, that was like the first one coming out of like pandemic lockdown, sort of, because we couldn't meet in person, and at that point we hadn't really embraced the Zoom, and but yeah, that one was really good. And yeah, I'm gonna have to reread that one. I've got it marked setting aside for now, because I do this a lot with nonfiction, and I don't know why, because then I just have to reread the whole thing later. Because what I do is I just bounce around. I'm like, I just kind of flip through, and it's like, oh, there's a picture. Let's read the caption, and then I read like a few paragraphs or pages, and then it's like, oh, hey, this chapter looks interesting. I'll read that chapter, and so
I'll look ahead and be Yeah, especially
Yeah.
nonfiction.
Yeah, I do that. I don't do that with fiction. I just do that with nonfiction. So, I guess it's it's like, well, there aren't spoilers, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like, everyone knows that the Titanic sank, right?
Yeah. Yeah. After we watched Oppenheimer, my husband's a history nut. I told him about the book that it's based off of, and he's like, "Sweet, I'm gonna buy it." And he bought it. He's like, "Oh wow, this is really dense." And I'm like, "Yeah." So he'll read it a bit at a time.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I haven't read that one. Let's see. Yeah, Beak of the Finch, and let's see. Where did it go? I saw it earlier. And we talked about the Happy Hooker.
Yeah.
Boudoirs to Brothels. That's it. Okay. The Intimate World of Wild West Women. And this was just fascinating. I mean, there's a whole nother side of history that either gets kind of played for laughs or titillation, or just completely ignored.
Yeah.
And it's just, this is it's a collection of, and it's nonfiction. And one thing I really appreciated was the author, Michael Rutter. He was very clear as to what was established facts. It's like everyone seems to agree that these are the facts. And this is backed up by, property records or whatever, what have you. And then things that were, or where there were different stories told about a person, he would tell both sides or all three or whatever, however many iterations of the story, and say, yeah, and we don't know which is true, or if it's somewhere, some mix of them, who knows. But he would at least put it out there. And he'd also debunk things. And I really appreciated his commitment to separating fact from speculation.
That's cool.
And but yeah, it was really interesting to hear about all the different paths women took, and which ones, some of them actually had really good success, and they were actually respected business women.
Oh, nice.
And others were and also some of the politics. I can't remember specifically. I'm wanting to say Salt Lake City.
Okay.
Where it's like, there were these sections of town, or even specific buildings that were kind of set aside for the trade.
Oh, cool.
But they were studiously ignored by the Mormon forefathers of the city. And it's like, and yeah, just some of the political machinations. And of course, anytime you're dealing with politics, there's risk. And because what if somebody got upset and decided they wanted to see you go down?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was just really interesting. And it's, yeah, it says illustrated with rare historical photographs.
Oh, that's cool.
Actual photographs. And then, some of them were, people I'd never heard of, but others were, it's like, oh, I've actually heard of her. And and now I can't remember actual names, but and who was involved. But
That's
yeah,
cool.
kind of wish I'd bought a copy. I borrowed a copy from the library.
Gotcha.
But that one was really interesting. And especially now, you know, because I grew up in sort of a frontier area, and now I live in the, you know, the Denver area, the Mountain West, and you know, a lot of these, and they talked about Denver quite a bit, and
Oh, cool.
Wyoming, and yeah, so
Very neat. Yeah.
so getting to know some of the local history. But yeah, it was a rough life for everybody, and it really does kind of take you into the history of that time, and you know, it's how a lot of the niceties that, you know, we take for granted, all the amenities, like living in the Wild West was just hard for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Were there any books you wanted to talk about?
I haven't read a book, unfortunately, since
Oh,
like the summer.
yeah.
I think I remember I was like cycling between sci-fi books and just like cozy like murder mysteries.
Yeah.
I think the one of the last books I remember was the one I talked to Brian about. Let me see if I can find it. Library Works. Man. It was funny when you brought up that brothel book, it sparked something in me that I remembered reading, and then it just went away again.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
let's see here. Fiction. It was about like, because he writes a lot of stuff about, or is it? It was pretty much about the prison system and
Oh.
how it can totally manipulate people and destroy their lives and keep them in the system for life. And like, because he was like this rich guy that was just, you know, trying to make a deal on Catalina Island, and
Huh.
he kind of went a step too far by, like, you know, he's really smart. So he's like, oh, I noticed, you know, like he would prod about the market and how they did things, like the black market there. And
Oh, yeah.
he figured it out. And then the people that were actually running the black market on Catalina Island had him imprisoned and had him like abused, sexually, physically, mentally, just to, you know, keep him down. And you know, I had read, you know, I've heard a lot of articles on how that's the real thing. And
Yeah.
and just, you know, history with my mom being that system as well, through countless hospitals and stuff. And so it was just an interesting, I mean, totally different parallel. It's not really a parallel, but
Yeah, but still, yeah.
just those
It does sound
systems.
interesting. Yeah.
What else? Yeah, what? I do like, you know, I see a lot of movies and stuff and series. And I guess there's this big movie called Amelia Perez.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if it's based on history or not, but it's about a gang leader that transitions to a woman. And it's like a musical too, so it's interesting. Let's see.
Is that a new one that's out recently, or?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I think
Yeah.
it was fall, winter last year.
All right. Gosh, I have really been out of the loop on movies and TV.
Yeah.
And yeah, people for the longest time, I would like keep a list, and people say, "Oh yeah, you need to watch this," and then I was just like, I just no, yeah.
Yeah, just want to read it.
I'm like, then there's just this long list, and it's overwhelming, and
Mhm. Yeah, but yeah, I'm trying to get back into reading more
there's another one.
because it helped me a lot last year.
Yeah. And of course, this is nonfiction, so yeah, it's marked as incomplete because I was like, oh, pictures. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, wow, I can be distracted by pictures. But yeah, this was amazing. Just like, and of course, this is a very Sue book. Just, getting out there and exploring, and it just, I remember every time, she'd be off on an adventure, dragging Bob along.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so amazing. She'd always talk about these things she's been doing. I was like, wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. I'm like, wow, that's just, what was it? Was it Slovenia, or I can't remember which country it was, but yeah, they went bicycling through like Eastern Europe.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then yeah, they biked across, was it Nebraska or Kansas? I can't remember which one. Well, she was always biking, on a long bike trip, and I'm
Okay.
just like, I can't even. I can't bike at all anymore. But even before I knew I wasn't supposed to be riding bicycles, I'd be like, no, I'm lucky if I can, bike to the little free library in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like, it's on the other side of the park.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who hike the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah, I don't know if she ever did that, but
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I could totally see her doing like the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just, why does somebody like Sue have to die?
Yeah, I know. But like it's like you could either live like a totally sheltered life or like, be like that and be like grab life and just ride it like crazy, and really like live. That's always been, I just always thought that was so admirable.
Oh, I just noticed this about this book. The foreword is by the late Dr. Roscoe C. Brown Jr., one of the famed Tuskegee Airmen fighter pilots during World War I.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So, wow. Yeah. So, yeah, I thought that was interesting that, fighter pilot and Sue. Yeah, I mean, I knew she was a pilot, but hearing all those stories at the memorial service and all these, I had no idea she was like a legend.
Yeah. When I saw it was at that place, I was like, oh, okay, maybe there's a smaller. And then I walked into that room like, oh my God, the whole parking lot was full for her.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't really. I'd never been there before, so I wasn't really prepared for. I was like, oh, it's a church.
Yeah.
No, this is a convention center.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's awesome though.
Yeah, yeah, I'm so glad. And yeah, I got to see people I hadn't seen in a very long time.
Mhm.
And and so nice. But yeah, we talked a little bit about, just reactions to the news and how, yeah, it's like it took a while for it to sink in when I saw her name in I guess Governor Polis made the announcement. And when that hit the press, and I was just like, just staring at her name for a little bit going, wait, what?
Her? Yeah, is that the same name? Yeah.
Like, how many Susan Wolbers are there in the world?
Yeah.
And maybe, but yeah, so that was, yeah. But it was, Caitlin and I had a really good time just kind of reminiscing about books and just good times with the book club
Mhm.
and such a variety of books. But Caitlin also mentioned that there was this theme of courage all throughout.
Yeah, that's
Um,
cool.
and this one, we hadn't talked about this one at all, way out there. But again, it's just taking taking the bull by the horns and just living life to the fullest. And if anyone knew how to do that, it was Sue.
Yes, totally.
But yeah, I have got it updated a little bit. So yeah, next month is the Service Berry,
Okay.
Jamie's pick. Yeah, and I don't know. I'm assuming Jamie is back east again,
Okay.
and so yeah, I've picked Radicalized for March.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the one, yeah, that Brian wanted me to read. Yeah.
Yeah, Brian had been and I'd read it because it's 4 novellas, and
Okay.
and Brian had like forwarded me a link to the 4th one. I think they're kind of separate. They're on similarly themed, but
Okay.
the 4th one is Mask of the Red Death, and it's a retelling of the Poe story, but in I guess a pandemic situation sort of thing. And it follows Mask of the Red Death very well. And so I have read that one already. So now I'm going back to the first one and reading it, and I think it's Unauthorized Bread, and it's grimly funny,
Yeah.
grimly amusing. Yeah. But yeah, it's wow, he writes scary stuff. It's funny, but it's scary. But yeah, looking forward to that. We talked a little bit about Fuzz. And of course, it's nonfiction, so I bounced around all over the place in that one. But by Mary Roach, and I surprised myself because I hadn't been a fan of Mary Roach's work before.
Mhm.
So it was nice to. It's like, okay, I like this one. And
Norse mythology. Yeah, Kenny loves that one too.
yeah.
I was bummed. Oh man! So when Neil came to the bookstore,
Oh, Old Firehouse.
yeah, there was that crazy line. Yeah, I waited for like an hour and a half, and then we had a friend that was just smoking a cigarette with him, and we're like,
Yeah.
okay, whatever, bye. But yeah,
I think Brian and, because I had actually taken off work early to get there and be where I was in the line. And, but Brian and Mark, they didn't show up until, I don't know what, it was, well, like 5 or 6 at night. And of course, the line was like all the way around the block and turned back on itself and everything, sneaking its way through Old Town. But I think it was about 2 in the morning when I went and picked them up at the bookstore. So it's like, no, I'm not standing in line with you. I already did my standing in line.
It was just cool that they waited that long.
Yeah. And yeah, that was a wild time. And people who worked at the bookstores said they got compliments from other businesses in Old Town about how well behaved we were. It's like, that's the best line.
That's great.
So
yeah, I see that there was a Tig Notaro book. I've been listening to her podcast with 2 other ladies, and that's great.
Yeah.
Such a great rapport.
Yeah, I need to look up some other stuff with her. But yeah, I know Caitlin's favorite was The Reader. And I don't know. I think mine was, there's also Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. That was really good.
Cool.
Now, you cannot fix a problem you do not know you have.
There you go.
And
when was that? Okay, 2020.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Let's see. We read that one. That was a fairly recent read, though. That was November of 2023.
Okay.
And Breakfast with Buddha.
Yeah.
That was kind of wild. That was one of those books that you go into without any kind of expectations, really. It's like, let's see. When his sister tricks him into taking her guru on a trip to their childhood home, Otto Ringling, a confirmed skeptic, is not amused. 6 days on the road with an enigmatic holy man who answers every question with a riddle is not what he'd planned.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that was fun. And it was just, it was just this narrative of these 2 guys getting to know each other and not knowing what to expect. And
that's cool. Looks like he's teaching them about America and that's neat.
Yeah, and it seems like Sue did have a knack for picking books that were about exploration. They were about intellectual curiosity and just kind of expanding your world.
It's really awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you could make it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know how long this would go for, so
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I wasn't sure either. And yeah, Caitlin and I spent a while talking, and then I guess, it's like, well, she had to go play supervillains or something with with the little one. And yeah. So I was like, well, I promised sprints. So I did some reading sprints, and I guess yeah, because usually with reading sprints, you usually get a lot of booktuber type people, and they're like, oh, okay, we'll read for a while. And everyone here, I guess it's a different crowd, and they're like, okay, this is boring. I'm not gonna just sit here and watch you read. So they left. But yeah. And so I was about to sign off, but then it's like, oh, Blair is here.
Yeah. But yeah, it does sound like an interesting read. Based on, like it was that the fact that she tried to infuse cooking and chemistry. I like that. And I also liked that the person that she connected with, the man that her partner, she had an interesting way of meeting him and getting to know him. And then she went to actually like investigate his past and ended up connecting with his mom. And his mom supported her. So that was really awesome.
Yeah.
From what I read, but
yeah. So, yeah, and people in the past, whenever this book had come up in conversation, people would say, "Oh, you're going to hate that book," and I'm like, "Why?" And they wouldn't tell me. So spoilery for some. I don't know. So I keep expecting, and I'm like, well, is it the scene that I took? That was kind of, there's an early essay scene, and it's like, well, I mean, those happen. I wasn't real happy about that scene.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I mean, it's the author's choice how to handle that kind of stuff. And it's not really how I would handle it, but I'm not the author, so.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's what they were talking about, that, they just, knew that I would find it upsetting, but
right.
Or if there's something yet to come that is going to make me go, no, chuck it against the wall. I don't know.
Yeah.
But no, but yeah, I feel like the theme, it's on theme for Sue. That whole intellectual curiosity and pushing boundaries and making your own life. So.
And some things just, need to be waded through to see the other side.
Yeah. And it's just a damn shame that Sue, and I can hear her voice so clearly talking. It's like, and that we don't have her insights. And that's one thing I've always enjoyed about Sue in book club, was just she would always have some really good insights as to what something actually meant. And yeah. And how to apply things to other situations and everything. Yeah, and Natalia actually popped into the chat for a while.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So
that's cool. That's awesome, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So so weird having this all kind of scattered now when we
Yeah.
used to be able to just, hey, it's Friday night. Let's
Yeah.
have a book club. Let's go to Caitlin's house. Let's go to Marta's.
Because somewhere in Old Town, but I mean,
Yeah.
at least we have technology.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess we can thank the pandemic for that. But
And hopefully we will stay connected this year. In the years to come.
Yeah. But yeah, and I don't know. It's so good to reconnect with people.
Yeah. I'm happy I took the courage to do it.
Yeah, it was so great to see you. And
Yes.
gosh, I hadn't seen you in so long. And yeah. And yeah, there were just so many people there. It's like, just such her circle was just so huge. And just, and Bob was talking about how, there were people there that had, come from miles away, huge distances just to be there. And, he knew he was never going to get to see those people ever again.
Mm-hmm.
So one last time to connect and talk. And funerals are just a strange thing. And
they are.
yeah. And and I remember my mom's funeral, so many people, and all of, there were some of her siblings,
Mm-hmm.
my uncles. I had no idea some of them were still alive, and they showed up. I was like, "Oh, you're alive!
Oh, cool! You're still there."
Hey!" And yeah, because like one of my uncles had kind of disappeared. He'd like remarried and hadn't heard from him in decades. But somehow the family, I think one of my aunts, knew where everybody was, or knew the chain, and got the chain going, and so many people showed up, and it was just kind of wild.
Yeah.
And people. And my dad's like, nah, just stick me in a hole in the ground. And yeah.
Yeah.
No, Dad. Dad, I'm sorry. No, we're not doing that.
Yep.
But I don't tell him that. But it's like, yeah. I mean, he's still going really strong, but it was just kind of, even, gosh, back when they lived in the town I grew up in mostly, and he'd be like taking me around the house, and, like, I didn't go into his workshop much, but he had a bunch of like stuff, in the workshop from like generations past. And he'd be like taking me around and showing me, and it's like, and this is a peanut butter jar container, and this wood with the, and he'd be explaining, it's like, yeah, someday I'm not going to be around to show you this stuff, and you be wondering what this is, and now you know it's a peanut butter container. Oh my God, I don't want to talk about this. Like, shut up. Just shut up. Shut up. Yeah. But yeah, I'm reading this book, and I just, Sue just keeps popping into my mind. It's like, wonder what Sue thought about this.
Mhm.
I don't even know if Sue managed to finish the book because, it was the January pick. Or I don't know if she'd read the book and then decided to recommend it because, we don't actually have a rule about that. So,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so maybe she read it, maybe she hadn't. I don't know. And so, yeah, part of me is like, we'll never know. Oh my God.
Yeah. That's always crazy too.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, like my mom, it's like every once in a while I'll be thinking about something and it's like, oh, what was that person's name, when I was like 3 and I went to stay with them for a while and while mom had surgery and who are those people? I was like, I should ask mom. Oh, I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, there can be a lot of stuff left to one person that only one person knows.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
But yeah, we persist.
yeah.
Yeah. It'll
Yeah.
be good to get back on it.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm actually gonna, I didn't spend nearly as much time sprinting as I had planned to because apparently there's not really anyone in this circle that wants to watch me read. So, so yeah, I was kind of getting ready to just shut down for the night.
Okay.
But is there anything else that you wanted to touch on or?
Not right now, no.
Okay.
Just saying hi and
Yeah.
checking in.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you could make it.
Thank you. I'm happy I made it too.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
and yeah, so and yeah, I'd already said some good nights earlier, so I think I will just say thank you everyone who showed up and everyone who's watching this on replay and yeah, have a good January and hope 2025 treats you well.
Good night.
Good night.
Mhm.